I want to go to something which we just got in today, and it's a commentary from Ed Snowden, which is called "Why Do Conspiracy Theories Flourish? Because the truth is too hard to handle." This is a section of what he had to say, and I will refer to this now. He said, as I found myself, this is him talking about his last 8 years and what he's learned in the last 8 years in his various interviews with people from all over the world. He said, as I found myself made vulnerable to all manner of internet fantasy and interrogated by journalists about my past, about my family background, and about an array of other issues, both entirely personal and entirely irrelevant to the matter at hand, there were moments when I wanted to scream, what is wrong with you people? All you want is intrigue, but an honest-to-God, globe-spanning apparatus of omnipresent surveillance riding in your pocket is not enough. You have to sauce that up. It took years, 8 years and counting in exile, for me to realize that I was missing the point. We talk about conspiracy theories in order to avoid talking about conspiracy practices, which are often too daunting, too threatening, too total. It's my hope in this post and in posts to come to engage a broader scope of conspiracy thinking by examining the relationship between true and false conspiracies, and by asking difficult questions about the relationships between truth and falsehood in our public and private lives. I'll just add this, which comes from the very beginning of that document, Harley. It's the first paragraph. He says, the greatest conspiracies are open and notorious, not theories, but practices expressed through law and policy, technology, and finance. Counterintuitively, these conspiracies are more often than not announced in public and with a modicum of pride. They're dutifully reported in our newspapers, they're bannered onto the covers of our magazines, updates on their progress are scrolled across our screens, all with such regularity as to render us unable to relate the banality of their methods to the rapacity of their ambitions. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what you've just heard.
Well, that's really fascinating, the fact that he talked openly about the open conspiracy. Look, here's a perfect example. What is the rules-based order? There is no rules-based order. This is something that was just invented, and it was invented to defend the practices of a corrupt, imploding cabal, which include sanctions which kill. How do you have a rules-based order which promotes the idea of humanitarian sanctions which will kill children in order to carry out a political purpose, which is to eliminate a government you don't like? The regime change in Ukraine, if you look at that, where you had caught on a wiretap, the communication between Victoria Nuland from the State Department and the US ambassador in Kiev, talking about who should be put in as president of Ukraine after the government was overthrown. You had Nuland handing out cookies in Maidan Square, but for the years before that, she was handing out $5 billion, as she admitted, to build the so-called democratic opposition, which included neo-Nazis to overthrow the government. Now, that's not a conspiracy theory. That happened. It's provable. And finally, this is being discussed a little bit in Europe about whether it's appropriate to have support for Ukraine, which has Nazis running their security and defense forces, that there are Nazis who are deployed in the Donbas region to kill the ethnic Russians who live there. So, I think what Snowden is getting at is extremely important and something that LaRouche pointed out for a long time. The British, through their ability to control the narrative, whether it's through writing the history, whether it's through the media control, whether it's through censorship, whether it's through spying on everybody, they have the ability to run these things in the open. And so when someone hears something about, well, the Chinese are locking up Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, people don't think, well, could that possibly be true? Wouldn't there be someone who could tell us whether that's true or not? and you track it down, and what you find out is the story comes from one person who's making it up, who's a British operative. So, I think this is really important that Snowden said it. And it's useful for people to get out of all this conspiracy mongering stuff. As some people are saying, the real conspiracy theory of the recent period is Russiagate. The idea that that Putin and Trump collaborated to win the election. That was a conspiracy theory, and it was a lie. It's proven as a lie. And yet, how many people in the US Congress continue to talk about Putin running the 2016 election for Trump? So this is where we're confronting, where we have to confront our own beliefs. What do we really know when we talk to people about politics? How much do we know of the history? How much do we know of the method of thinking of the people who are trying to get us to think a certain way? And this is why Lyndon LaRouche had enormous volumes of writings on intelligence work. Intelligence work is not just reading what someone says in the newspaper, but knowing how the people who are saying these things think, what they do, how their view of man, their view of man's relationship to the universe. And so, I think what Snowden said is extremely important, and I know it's something you and I have been talking about, that we have to make more intelligible to the average American so that we stop getting pulled into these wars by these false flags and these lies.